is who I am.
Grab your mom's cameras because we're gonna be pulling some hot trick shots with the latest final piece to the Bad Batch version 2 team, Crosshair Scarred. And as the intro and my initial enthusiasm would suggest, he has landed hot hit. Oh, my friends, we're finally over the first complete era in this new Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes system that we've been provided. And the question is, since this team was told to us that there's no legendary in this new era and there's no event that's going to be tied to this new team, is this team worth your time and effort to build up? Well, we got to see how good this team is, my friends. So sit back, relax, get ready to do your best 360 nose with Crosshair, and let's get into the conversation for today. Now listen up, people. Crosshair's biggest challenge is getting rid of the shaken. He's all shakeable. I kind of got some poofy hair like Elvis right now. Anyways, people, every like you leave, we can reduce the stack of shaken by 1. Come on, can we help him out? Maybe we'll be able to use him on the old school Bad Batch team if we were able to do so. We'll talk a little bit about that. But there's a few things I want to kind of get out real quick before we actually talk more about the Crosshair and the team now that they're fully put together. Few interesting tidbits. First and foremost, this is one of the cheapest characters CG has ever released. Cheapest, you know what I mean, relative to all the other characters released in this game. Obviously, as you guys know, you get 20 shards of Crosshair inside of the episode pass. And in general, the episode pass is one of the better-ish things you can buy in this game in terms of value. Now, secondly, if you are someone that buys these characters, they are selling a $75 pack that only can be bought on the web store or PC. And it gives you 100 shards of Crosshair, 15 Omicrons, 20 Zetas, 2 fully pieces of Kyrotech crafted for you, which ends up being cheaper than buying the individual marquee packs. And then they released this new Bad Batch Ascension bundle. Overly complicated, but long story short, for $62, you get yourselves 55 shards of Crosshair. So if you total all those up there between the marquee event and this, it comes out to about $157 for a 7-star character. And of course, that caveat, let me just make sure I make this clear. The $157 gets you Crosshair to 6 stars if you follow that trajectory I set out for you. And then for the remaining week of the marquee event, you would farm that 7th star. Generally, for the longest time, characters are like $300, $330 on average. Then they kind of reduced it where it was in that $200 range. Now we're sub $200. So if you're someone spending money on a character, just know they changed it up for this character. I don't know if that's going to be it going forward, but I thought that was interesting to share with you guys. And secondly, also very interesting, I did not pick this up, but Crosshair, you don't need any Kyrotech until you get to Gear 11. Which means if you're rocking this character at 3 stars, 4 stars for the foreseeable future, you can take him all the way up to Gear 11. I'm kind of a fan of that, I want people to use these characters even before you get them all the way up to 7 stars, Gear 13. This is almost as good as Hux, where Hux doesn't need any Kyrotech to get to Gear 12, which was a very rare thing that we don't really see. Actually, cross that. What I meant was Hux had another oddity where you could take him to Gear 12 even before 7 stars. Wasn't that it? Yeah, Hux was kind of an oddball. So point I'm bringing up here with those two things, I wonder if CG's having a hard time selling this team, where they're letting you use these characters at a higher gear level than usual before Kyrotech, and they're reducing the price over all these characters. And I don't think I'm the only one kind of thinking this. I mean, when you kind of read the room, you can kind of get the vibe that not a lot of people cared about these characters. I'm gonna speak from personal experience. Out of all the character kit reveals that I've done, the Bad Batch has generally been the lowest viewed kit reveals that I can remember in a long time. People like Jocasta Nu, Dark Side Vision, right? People come out to see that, but another round of Bad Batch, yeah, not a lot of people were into that. Take my upvote. You kind of read the room as well. I, like many, don't care about this new Bad Batch team in the slightest, but like many, have been looking forward to Crosshair as a character for a long time. We're going to talk about if there's any viability of the OG Bad Batch crew, opinions of the new Bad Batch team, because I'm going to be honest here, I seriously don't give a flying about them all. I love the Bad Batch when I first saw the Clone Wars animated series, and Crosshair was especially a favorite. To see what CG has done with this new team, making Crosshair so specific anti-OG Bad Batch just hurts my soul a little bit. I think a lot of people share this feeling, and they're just ready to move on past this era. I think CG, for their first full era in this new system, I think they kind of dropped the ball. There was no special event, no legendary. They're just basically saying, hey, please buy these characters, please farm these characters. We think they're going to be good. And the question is now, is the team good? Yes, the team is going to be good, and let's talk about that. So, first and foremost, how do you want to mod up this team, Omicron this team, Zeta up this team? I'll leave a link down below to my ultimate SWGoH resource, where here we have a breakdown for the new Bad Batch version 2 team. At the very minimum, when it comes to Omicrons, you're going to want to have the Omega Fugitive lead. Learn by watching. We're going to go over some pre-Omicron Bad Batch gameplay today from our early testing that we just did the other day before Grand Arena. If you're a little impatient and you want to see the team with all the Omicrons, there's a card in the top right-hand corner to a video we made a little bit before, where data miners and their little funny custom sandbox tool they made showed us the Omicrons in action. It is very clear the Omega Fugitive Omicron is going to add a big oomph to this team, especially for the non-galactic legend things they're going to want to fight. The bonus turns being sort of anti-stun, and there's an anti-revive baked into this. It's gonna be a big deal. As we're gonna see today, I'm seeing Crosshair do plenty of damage without this Omicron, but if you want to take the damage even further, this is gonna be great, allowing him first and foremost to assist off allies with target practice using special abilities, and secondly, he's gonna stack up his offense even more when debuffs are applied to him. I don't think it's necessary, but if you want to up the ante and make the damage hit even more, that's an Omicron to throw on. And then quickly, when it comes to Zetas, I think these four in the green are kind of the core. You're gonna want to have the Omega Fugitive Big Sister ability. That's the cooldown reduction. That's great plug and play regardless of lineup. Also, Omega Fugitive's lead, learn by watching. You're going to want to have that because that gives you the anti-critical hits baked into it. Hunter Mercenaries, this will hurt. We're going to talk about this in the general picture of this team. This is a much bigger deal now. Now that we have like a full team of Bad Batch version 2 here, it's going to allow them to use that big special ability a lot more. And I was almost tempted to put Crosshair Scars, it's in my head, Zeta, in the second priority, but I think it's going to be nice. It allows him to ignore protection when there's no galactic legends. I think he's going to hit so much, you might not even need this, but I think it's going to be a Zeta you're going to want to have. It's going to be so nice ignoring that protection. And then afterwards, Batcher, Zeta, it allows you to ignore taunt, maybe help you set up some good marks. Wrecker Mercenary allows him to reset his AoE, get some pre-taunting going on when someone gets in captivity. And then Omega's Fugitive Energy Crossbow adds a little bit of crit avoidance up to allies without stealth. Again, I think those are the minor things, but the top priority ones are going to be more important. And then, of course, we have the modding graphics, and big thanks to people for putting together these lovely graphics over the past few months for these characters. And today's shining gem is going to be Crosshair Scarred. Because he gets so much turn meter when anytime allies are getting target practice, all that fun jazz, we don't need to worry too much about speed. We want to make sure we're leaning into damage, offense, crit chance. And I think an accuracy arrow could be beneficial for this team. Otherwise, if you don't have accuracy arrow, which is like the first I think I'm recommending it, offense is probably the way to go on that arrow. Oh, I forgot to add. Basically, this new pricing pack system they did for Crosshair Scarred, you don't really need to open up the individual marquee packs, which is kind of an interesting thing. Maybe they didn't like my 5775 song. They took it personally. I pulled some packs because I wanted to get the character to 7-star and not wait the whole week. So again, interesting little thing they did at the pricing. So with that said, we kind of highlighted the Zetas, the Omicrons, all that other fun stuff. Is the team actually good? CG at the beginning of this era, something went wrong with their production pipeline, and they had to can whatever event or maybe a legendary, whatever it was, that this team was supposed to build to, and they just said, pretty please spend the money, get these characters. We think they're gonna be good. Is the team good? We're finally here 3 months later after starting this era. I can say the team is definitely good. I think this is going to be a great offensive team when it comes to Grand Arena, and you might be able to pull some stuff off in Territory Wars. To give you the quick, short, and simple on the summary while we roll this gameplay, the first and foremost, in the Galactic Legend Hemisphere, before we even look at Omicrons, which the Omicrons don't really matter because they get turned off when you go up against the Galactic Legends, it seems like we can beat Jabba easily. Jabba not being able to really get insta-kill because even when he tries to get the Rancor to eat up somebody, they just go into captivity, giving you a chance to bring your characters back into the action. So that basically ignores the coolest thing about Jabba. So this should be a pretty nice alternative counter to Jabba. Maybe it could beat some Rey lineups. we're able to beat like your vanilla standard rays, you know, with Resistance Hero Finn, Poe, Ben, Ezra, and, you know, Cal. Things could get a little bit more complicated. I was able to beat Galactic Legend Leia with a Datacron. Big damage, as you can see. Without the Datacron, could be a little bit complicated, but it's going to show that maybe during some Datacron seasons, maybe they could beat some Leias. Other than that, was pretty difficult. I did notice some bugs up against Jedi Master Luke. For whatever reason, we were like briefly losing our stealth, which allowed them to target people other than Wrecker. Really weird. Maybe that could be something down the road that gets fixed. Yeah, wishful thinking, right? But what this team is really going to excel in, yes, they can punch up into that Galactic Legend hemisphere a little bit. And I want to remind you guys, this is a fully marquee team. There's no legendary, no epic confrontation in there, and they're able to even get into the Galactic Legend sphere a little bit. That's kind of impressive, but I think what's really more so impressive, the fact that their play that they're going to be sitting in, it's going to be somewhere in that range of being able to counter Revas, Balins, Queen Amidala's, Great Mothers. That's basically the highest level of talent inside of Grand Arena Territory Wars right now before you even get to the Galactic Legends. That right there is what the biggest deal for this team is going to be. A fully marquee team that's able to beat those things. That's a big deal, my friends. And some of these will be dependent on those Omicrons that we discussed. I think when you have the Omicrons on this team, like we saw in the early Omicron gameplay from a while ago, we're able to get more consistent wins up against things like Queen Amidala, as well, more specifically, Reva. So that right there, the team is good. However, there are some issues that will be plaguing people, whether they should be building up this team. But I think before we do that, let's actually talk about Crosshair more specifically. We're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. We're putting the cart before the horse. Crosshair Scarred, what is he adding to the Bad Batch team? The final piece to the puzzle. Damn it! Holy cow! The overall theme for Crosshair Scarred is, well, he's a little bit scarred, he's got some issues, he's a bit shaken up. On the It's in My Head unique ability, you are immediately inflicted with 20 stacks of shaken, and, well, that's 10% accuracy loss per stack of shaken. So he has 200% negative accuracy. And if you think about it, the accuracy arrow, in case you're wondering, I guess we should provide some context to it. It more or less acts in a way of reducing the stacks by 3. Not actually, but it reduces it helps you get 30% accuracy, which hypothetically is like, 3 stacks of shaken, right? I think that's the best way to explain it. And the goal is to quickly get the stacks of shaken off of him so you can get the big hits and finally able to land hits on the opposing team. The ways to do that, first and foremost, Crosshair Scarred gains, whenever Crosshair gains a stack of target practice, he's gonna remove 1 stack of shaken and gain 15% turn meter. How do you get target practice on this team? And this is gonna lean into our conversation later why you probably won't be able to use this in the OG Bad Batch team. You really wanna focus fire on like one particular enemy because you get target practice when you hit an enemy that the previous ally hit. So you kinda wanna successfully keep focus firing on one enemy. You're gonna get tons of stacks of target practice, hopefully reduce the amount of stacks of shaken on him as fast as possible. And secondly, the other way to remove as much stack of shaken is using I Will Handle It. This sort of reminds me a little bit of Jedi Master Kenobi, where you could target someone else, or you get a different benefit if you just target Master Kenobi himself. He gets faster ultimate charge, right? Well, with I Will Handle It, if you target Crosshair, you're gonna be able to reduce the stacks of shaken by 6. So you're gonna wanna do this once or twice, and then likely you're gonna get pretty darn close to getting rid of all the shaken. And once all the shaken is all shook up, then you're gonna get the target secured. And this is where the fun really begins, where when he used this ability, we had a lot of one shots out there. Assuming he's landing a critical, which is kind of the most important thing. So teams that have anti-critical hits kind of minimize the power of this because, well, you need to get the benefits of the 200% critical damage that's baked in the target secured. When he lands a critical hit, I found myself more often than not one-shotting opposing teams. We're talking like big hits on Malgus, for example. And again, if you have those Zetas baked in, he could ignore protection. One-shotting a Holdo. It's not quite an insta-kill, but it's basically an insta-kill. In most situations, so long as he can critically hit and got rid of all the stacks of shaken, you're going to be in business. And I'm not going to kid around. It is super fun. Oh my gosh, there's nothing as quite as satisfying as doing something like that. Imagine, like, it's, you know that first feeling when Mando got his insta kill? It feels something like that. And once you're able to finally get all those stacks of Shake It Up and he can actually hit, yes, the target secure does great damage, but even his basic ability, holy cow, it feels sort of like a Fennec Shan, Dark Trooper type of thing, where he's able to do some massive amount of damage. He's able to hit the target enemy 3 times, which, by the way, we're going to talk about the overall picture of the team in a second. It's going to help you tremendously get tons of target practice and whatnot to speed up the process of releasing someone from captivity. So it's doing some pretty solid work. And again, if you can ignore protection, imagine if Dark Trooper or Fennec can ignore protection. Yeah, that would feel pretty darn good, wouldn't it? And one more thing I want to purposely point out for Crosshair, don't let this, go under the radar. This is a pretty darn durable attacker. I found myself seeing this guy take so many hits that most tanks would not survive. In the It's My Head unique ability, he's going to start the battle with 200% defense for 3 turns. That's a long time for him to take a lot of hits. And the whole point of this is the developers are trying to give you a chance to keep him around as long as possible because you're kind of fighting this uphill battle of getting rid of the Shake-In. So if you're able to nuke him out fast, it wouldn't be that satisfying. So the whole point is he generally can take a lot of hits. I feel like he's almost like Wrecker-like durability. So really cool stuff, one of the more durable attackers for the beginning of the battle. And that's really it. It's big damage. We saw glimmers when we started building the team. The previous Omega, she was getting some good damage. Crosshair is definitely next level type of damage. Omega was cool and all. This is really darn good. And now I kind of want to zoom back a little bit, and take a look at the broader picture for the new Bad Batch team. I already kind of highlighted what this is going to be beating. Definitely in that top echelon of teams that exist out there under the Galactic Legends. So kind of a big deal, of course. But in general now that we have a whole entire Bad Batch V2 team, there are several things that are very clear now. Remember when we first got the captivity, it's like, oh man, I can't once you're in captive, you're like, yeah, it's basically done. You can't get him out. I found myself rarely ever losing someone to captive. When someone gets captive, I bring them back pretty darn quickly, consistently now. And that's a big deal. It's basically a second life that I'm giving to someone that's about to be destroyed. So that, I think, is the biggest thing that I noticed about this team. The core function of all right, it gives you a way to kind of get around insta kills, for example, or if someone's getting their butt kicked, all right, let's regroup, let's reset, let's try to get them back and start all over again. And this makes this very nice. As I said, going up against things like Jabba the Hutt, when they insta kill, you don't actually insta kill. You got a second chance bringing them back. And I usually found myself bringing them back all the time. Or Ray throws a sudden whirlwind. Woo! Generally, you get nuked, call it a day. Not up against this. You save them, they stay in captivity, you bring them back. Ray wasted a sudden whirlwind. Commander Tano, insta kill, doesn't work. So this is becoming a lot more appreciated now. Now that we have a full team, you have more people that can contribute towards this target practice requirement to release them from captivity. And again, I really think a hit or a miss really helps out a ton, assuming he gets good hits out of it. But besides even the damage portion, him being able to hit 3 times brings people back out of the captivity so much faster than before. And sort of related to that, no, very, very important. If you guys recall, the Hunter Mercenary, when we first started testing him out, the This Will Hurt, it's kind of like Crosshair's basics name, a hit or a miss, kind of felt like that when it comes to this ability. But this is why the Zeta on his unique ability is so important now more than ever. On focused cooperation, when a Bad Batch ally loses captive, you get to reset the cooldown of This Will Hurt. Whenever Hunter gains a stack of target practice, you reduce the cooldown of This Will Hurt by 1. What did I just say? What was I trying to build this up here to? The point I was trying to build this up here, I find it a lot easier to get even more target practice than before. Well, that's gonna help get This Will Hurt a lot faster. A kind of a big kill type of ability. And when a Bad Batch ally loses captive, that means you released them, you succeeded. Got something in my eye right now, wake up. That means more opportunities to use this ability. So I found myself use this ability way more frequently in way more meaningful ways. So this is why I kind of made this on one of your top priorities for the Zetas. So Crosshair, in my opinion, really does bring the crew together. Brings the cows back home. Is that how the saying goes? I don't know. Give me a home where the Bad Batch can roam, and my Crosshair can snipe fools all day. beautiful. He really does tie the bow, brings everything together. Way more damage. The team was drastically missing out on damage. He brings the heat, no question about it. You got to build up to it a little bit, but once he's got shaken off and he is locked in, he is literally the definition of it's time to lock the heck in, people. When he's locked in, he is nuking fools left and right, helping us get target practice a lot sooner, helping us make more utilization out of Hunter Mercenary and his big abilities. I am extremely happy to see Crosshair here finally after 4 years of waiting. As you guys can see, I took him to Relic 9. Me and Nakavika, we were going crazy. We waited 4 years for this. I don't know if we're ever gonna see another Crosshair. I took him to Relic 9 and his mastery gains are pretty much damage oriented. So, you know, it stacks up a little bit. And that's how we're able to get those pretty nice hits before Datacrons and Omicrons are considered. However, this is where the unfortunate stuff comes up. First and foremost, as I said today, many times before, CG told us at the beginning of this era, something happened in the production pipeline. I don't think they wanted it to happen. Probably not a good thing. Only one can speculate why big pieces of content were cut out. Because remember, every era, we're supposed to lead into a big event, maybe a raid, maybe a legendary. We're getting nothing out of the Bad Batch in this era. They just said, we hope you like this team. We had to can whatever we had planned out before. However, I want to make this clear. They just said this era. So although whatever was planned for this era got canned, that doesn't mean that this team will not be required for something later on this year, next year, 2, 3 years from now. Just want to make sure that's clear. Although there's nothing right now, they might be needed for something in the future potentially, but I can't promise that to you. Secondly, the other thing that I think has a lot of people down, CG, I think this is probably the most blatant example of it. They over babysat, they over pigeonholed this team. Unfortunately, we have no clone tags on this team, and I think especially for Crosshair, he should have had the clone tag as well as the others. If old man Captain Rex has a clone tag, why don't these guys? Once a clone, always a clone, right? It's like sort of saying, what if like Ayla Sakura, she's a Twilight, but all of a sudden they take away the Twilight tag. It's like, that's just what you're born as, right? That's your tag for life, baby. And really what that leads into is probably the thing that drives me the craziest with this whole team. The fact that Crosshair is not really gonna work well with the old Bad Batch team. First and foremost, a lot of the Bad Batch version 1 team relies on targeting other clones. He's not a clone. It's not going to work out as well. Yes, he has the Bad Batch tag. Yes, there's still synergy there, but it feels more like, you know, how you put a Asajj Ventress in a Grievous team. Yeah, there's synergy. Is it really taking Grievous to the next level? Probably not. I actually think right now Omega, the previous one, might be better than Crosshair, which is kind of an odd thing. Furthermore, you need target practice. Target practice is the core function for Crosshair to get rid of all the shaken. Target practice is not a thing of the old team. And what that means is Crosshair is having shaken for way longer than you could possibly want. Yes, Crosshair can target himself, he can get rid of the shaken, but it's gonna take way longer than the previous team, or the current team, I should say. However, that's not to say it's gonna be completely useless. Yes, if you wanna just stick it up CG's rear end where the sun don't shine, you still wanna do it. Technically, you could still use him. You're just missing out on a ton of synergy because he's not a clone and because the shaken is a big problem. But keep in mind, the OG Bad Batch team, they have a couple of stuns. You know, Wrecker's got a stun on him, right? You know, Tech has a stun as well, and when an enemy is stunned, Crosshair can land his hit. But the problem is, again, you won't be able to use those big abilities on Crosshair Scarred until you get rid of all the stacks of Shaken. So things like Target Secured, you might not use it, but you know what? I understand if you still do it because it's fun. But again, I think CG kind of over babysat us when it came to this. I think people really want, I think this is part of the reason why this has sort of been a miss, not just because there's no legendary or event or raid tied to them. The Crosshair we wanted, we just wanted to lift the old Bad Batch team. I love the kit what Crosshair has. It's brilliant. I love the damage. I just wish that was for the old Bad Batch team to lift them up. But that's how the cookie's gonna crumble, my friends. And that's gonna wrap it up for today, ladies and gentlemen, all you Gungans and droids, and of course, a big shout out to the clones, but aren't clones in CG's eyes. Happy to see Crosshair finally in this game. He's doing great damage. Maybe a little too specific to the new Bad Batch team, but the new Bad Batch team, they're doing work, and although they might not be required for anything in this era, that doesn't mean in future eras or future years in Star Wars Galaxies that they won't be required for something. And if you do build them up, I think they're gonna be a great team to work in what's the top tier lineups that we see in Grand Arena for right now. Leave that like, comment down below, subscribe so you're not missing a thing, and always remember, it's great to be in the Empire today.
Oh, it's great to be